My name is Lord Duthie. I'm going to speak about the role of Surveyor members of the Upper Tribunal and the contribution they make to judicial decision-making. I do so not only as a legal member of the Upper Tribunal, but as President of the Lands Tribunal for Scotland and Chairman of the Scottish Land Court, where I sit with Surveyor and agricultural members. Earlier in my career, I sat in the first-tier tribunal in the Social Entitlement Chamber, alongside medically qualified and disability qualified members. In all of these jurisdictions, I've sat with colleagues who bring specialist expertise that I, as a lawyer, don't possess. I've learned that the best decisions are rarely the product of a single perspective. They emerge from the combination of different forms of knowledge, experience, and judgment, and that is certainly true of the Upper Tribunal. The cases which come before the Upper Tribunal frequently involve complex questions of valuation and technical evidence. Legal members bring expertise in law, procedure, and judicial reasoning. Surveyor members bring professional knowledge, practical experience, and an understanding of valuation matters that are equally important to the Tribunal's work. In my experience, they also become highly adept at identifying the legal issues which truly matter. Surveyor members are not mere assessors or advisors to the Tribunal. They are full members of the Tribunal. They are judicial office holders in their own right, participating fully in the determination of appeals and the decisions that we reach. That distinction is important. A Surveyor member is not there simply to answer the technical questions. They're there to decide the case along with the legally qualified member. Their analysis, experience, and judgment form an important part of the decision-making process. Some of the most valuable contributions come when a specialist member sees something that others have missed. It may be a feature of the evidence, a practical implication of a valuation approach, or an assumption that requires to be tested. Sometimes a single question can change the way in which the Tribunal understands a case. Good judges welcome that. Sound decision-making depends upon rigorous discussion and careful challenge. It depends upon colleagues being willing to bring their expertise to bear on the issues before them, to test assumptions, and where appropriate, to disagree. If appointed, it's important that you feel comfortable participating fully in deliberations. You should feel able to express a different view from a legal member. You should feel able to challenge a line of reasoning that does not persuade you. Indeed, that is often one of the most valuable contributions a specialist member can make. All of this takes place within a collegiate environment. Tribunal decision-making is fundamentally collaborative. We listen to one another. We test each other's views. We learn from one another, and sometimes we persuade, and sometimes we are persuaded. What matters is not whose view prevails, but whether collectively we reach the right answer. That spirit of collegiality is something I greatly value in both the Lands Tribunal for Scotland and the Scottish Land Court, and is equally important in the Upper Tribunal for Scotland. The result is that the Tribunal is stronger because of the range of expertise around the table. We become more than the sum of our parts. If you have the professional expertise, judgment, curiosity, and commitment to public service that the role requires, I very much hope that you will consider applying. It's rewarding work, important work, and work in which your expertise can make a real difference to the quality of justice delivered by the Upper Tribunal for Scotland.
Hello, my name is Craigie Marwick and I'm a member of the Lands Tribunal for Scotland and formerly a Surveyor member of the Upper Tribunal. Until fairly recently, appeals were dealt with by local valuation appeal committees, with more technical or complex cases being dealt with by the Lands Tribunal. But in 2023, the local committees were replaced by the first-tier tribunal. The role of the Lands Tribunal was transferred to the Upper Tribunal, which now deals with the more complex and technical rating appeals. I thought it might be helpful to give some insight to my experience of the Lands Tribunal and Upper Tribunal, and what the role typically involves. Although, of course, no two cases are the same, and many which are referred to the Upper Tribunal end up being resolved by agreement between the parties. Appeals can come to the Upper Tribunal in a number of ways. They can be referred by one or both of the parties, and they can also be referred by the first-tier tribunal. It is then up to the Upper Tribunal to decide whether to accept the case or not. The legislation sets out the criteria needed to meet the requirements of being dealt with by the Upper Tribunal, and broadly speaking, these relate to complexity, or wide-ranging matters of principle, for example, test cases. Once a referral has been accepted, there's a procedure to be followed. This is so that when it gets to an evidential hearing, all the components of the case have been disclosed, and both parties have had the opportunity to consider and comment on the other's evidence. This covers things like pleadings, productions, legal authorities, witness statements, any expert reports, and notes of argument. Often this procedure can be dealt with by the tribunal clerks, but on other occasions, issues may arise which need legal and surveyor input, and sometimes preliminary hearings or legal debates. This can take many months, but proper preparation is important to ensure a fair hearing, focused on the relevant issues and making the best use of everyone's time. Many cases are able to be resolved by agreement between the parties as this process advances, but matters of principle or with wider ramifications may often need a tribunal decision. At the risk of stating the obvious, the tribunal members need to understand what the case is about and familiarise themselves with the evidence and arguments in advance of the hearing. The amount of digital and hard copy evidence generated can make this a time-consuming task, but it's important to allow the tribunal to prepare properly and to identify areas which may require clarification. Once the case is ready for an evidential hearing, it usually follows a fairly standard procedure, where witness evidence is led, cross-examined and re-examined, with the tribunal asking questions as matters progress. And I'm often surprised how the most straightforward questions from the tribunal at a hearing can elicit the most helpful information. Usually after that, all that remains is for each side to summarise and make legal submissions. The tribunal then retires and in due course makes a decision and importantly, writes up and publishes an opinion setting out the evidence and the reasoning which underpins the decision. So the actual hearing is only one part of a more extensive process, and proactive surveyor engagement at all stages is really important. Because of the type of cases that come to the Upper Tribunal, the work can be challenging, but I've always found it to be interesting and rewarding. I think the personal qualities that are most helpful in the role are open-mindedness, that is, the ability to put aside any preconceived ideas and listen fairly to both sides of the debate. The ability to logically analyse the evidence, sort the critical factors from the peripheral ones, and then articulate those to colleagues. And a willingness to fully participate in the whole process and work in a positive and collaborative way as part of a team. The tribunal fulfills an important public service. It helps parties to resolve disputes where consensual agreement is not possible. It is made more effective by a strong partnership of legal and specialist surveyor expertise. I do hope this gives you some helpful insight into the work of the Upper Tribunal, and if you do decide to apply, I wish you the very best of luck.